Sony's newest 8mm mechanism, the A mechanism. It is lightweight, has fewer parts than earlier mechanisms, and is very reliable. It is the mechanism used in many Sony 8mm products of the 90s. This video shows you how to check out the A mechanism for proper operation. Disassemble and reassemble the transport and how to align it. The tape concludes with a section of helpful service hints. If a problem is encountered and you suspect the mechanism, first determine if the problem is really in the mechanism. To determine if the mechanism is at fault, you should first test it. You can use the Sony RM95 remote control if the camcorder or VCR has a service mode. Or use a Sony mode selector box if your camcorder or VCR does not have a service mode. Use the RM95 to determine if the capstan, drum, or mechanical sections operate in the service mode by following the procedure outlined in the service manual of your unit. If the mechanism works in the service mode, then the mechanism is probably not defective. If the unit does not have a service mode, remove the mechanism from the unit and hook it up to a Sony mode selector box using the service interface board. The green overlay is used with the mode box when servicing the A mechanism. Press the buttons on the mode box to load and unload the transport. First, drive the mechanism in the unload direction. The cassette holder will pop up when the mechanism reaches the eject position. In this position, the number 5 lamp lights on the mode box. The eject position is normally as far as the mechanism travels in the unloading process. However, with the mode box, we can drive the mechanism to its extreme mechanical limit or end position by pressing the unload button again. The number 4 lamp lights in the end position. Now move the mechanism forward to the use position by pressing the load button. The use position is the first position the mechanism heads to in the loading process. First the number 5 lamp lights, then number 7 during the time it takes the mechanism to get to the use position. At this time, you can press the cassette holder down and it should lock in place. The number 6 lamp lights on the mode box in the use position. The cassette holder must be in the down position to drive the mechanism to the ready position, otherwise it will jam. After the mechanism threads a tape, it moves toward ready. First the number 7 lamp lights, then number 5, and then number 7 lights again. When the mechanism reaches the ready position, the number 1 lamp lights on the mode box. We will now drive the mechanism to the record play position by pressing load again. As the mechanism travels toward record play, first the number 7 lamp lights, then number 3 and number 7 again. In the record play position, the number 2 lamp lights on the mode box. Now move the mechanism to the fast forward position. As the mechanism travels towards fast forward, the number 7 lamp lights. All lamps will go out when the mechanism reaches the fast forward position. If you move the mechanism forward beyond this point, the number 4 lamp will light. At this point, the mechanism has reached its limit of travel. This is the normal loading sequence for the A mechanism. If in the process of testing you find the mechanism is defective and will not eject, you can simply move the eject lever to open the cassette compartment. With this method, the cassette holder can be opened in any mechanism position. Take note, however, if a tape is threaded inside, it may be damaged in the process. If you determine that the mechanism is defective, disassemble it to access the broken parts. In order to disassemble the mechanism, you should have the following tools: a fine point tweezer, a small Phillips screwdriver, a Sony mode selector box, and 2 round toothpicks. You should also use a plastic storage box with labeled compartments to store screws and small parts. This will simplify the reassembly process. In order to gain access to most of the mechanism components, you must first remove the cassette holder assembly. Remove 2 screws from the front of the mechanism. Then eject the cassette holder. The cassette holder's up position is controlled by a pin on each side of the mechanism. These pins fit into cup-like protrusions on either side of the cassette holder. In order to release the cassette holder, both mechanism sidewalls must be pushed aside simultaneously while at the same time pressing down slightly on the cassette holder. Simply push the cassette holder down about ½ inch and then insert toothpicks between the sides of the mechanism and the cassette holder. This forces the walls away from the holder and prevents the pins from engaging. Gently let go of the cassette holder, and as you move the left side wall away from the cassette holder axle, lift the cassette holder off. With the cassette holder removed, you can remove the drum. Remove these 2 brass screws. Then remove the head protector. From the bottom of the mechanism, remove the connector from the drum assembly. Do not remove the ribbon wire from the connector itself, only the connector from the drum. Then remove these 3 drum hold-down screws. Remove the drum assembly. On the top of the mechanism, remove 1 screw on the metal plate. Next, lift up the metal plate slightly and pull it forward. This exposes the mechanical parts underneath the plate. First, remove the take-up reel. Then remove the soft gear. Finally, remove the soft arm. To remove the capstan motor, first remove the screw located behind the capstan shaft. Turn the mechanism over and remove 2 screws from the capstan motor cover. Lift off the capstan motor cover. Then take out the motor. The upper section of the mechanism is called the LS chassis. In order to separate it from the main chassis, remove the pendulum gear lock washer. Then remove the pendulum gear. Remove the screw on the ribbon wire holder in the upper right corner. Remove the ribbon wire holder. Then remove the 4 screws on the LS chassis as indicated. With the screws removed, lift the LS chassis off the main chassis assembly. To remove the tape guides, move the cam slider all the way to the front of the chassis. The tape guides come out of their channels. Gently rotate each tape guide until its post key lines up with the cutout on the tape arm. To remove the tape arms, remove the lock washer from each arm. Then lift the tape arms off the chassis and remove the cam slider. With the mechanism face up, you can remove the back tension wire. First, remove one screw. Lift off the wire base and unloop the wire from the supply reel. Now remove the reel table. The pinch roller assembly is held in place by a plastic lock washer which fits inside a well in the pinch roller arm. In order to remove the pinch roller, this washer must be cut. Therefore, be sure to order a replacement lock washer whenever the pinch roller is removed. For this video, we've already removed the washer. Be careful not to lose the spring that is mounted underneath when removing the pinch roller. The first step in disassembling the main chassis is to remove the LS arm. Be aware that the arm has a pin protruding from underneath it at this point. The pin mates with a sleeve. When the LS arm is taken off, the sleeve will remain either on the pin or on the metal cam gear. In either case, it can easily fall off or get lost. With this in mind, remove the LS arm. In this instance, the sleeve is on the pin and should be removed. To remove the loading motor, apply power to it. Position the metal tab, which is over this gear, as far to the right as possible. This provides enough clearance for the motor to be removed. Then remove these two screws. Lift out the motor assembly and the A gear. From this point on, do not turn the mechanism over unless instructed to do so, otherwise parts may fall out. Remove the two plastic lock washers securing the slider. We have already done this. Then remove the slider assembly. Next, we'll remove the eject lever. Do this slowly to prevent the spring below it from getting lost. A sleeve is installed in the center of the eject lever. Be careful not to lose it. In order to remove the metal cam gear, remove two screws on the gear retaining bracket. Remove the gear retaining bracket. Then remove the metal cam gear. Remove the GL arm below it. Then remove the fast forward arm. Finally, remove the plastic gear below it. To remove the pinch press arm, remove this plastic lock washer. Lift off the arm. To remove the belt and its associated gears, remove the plastic gear at the front. Then remove the plastic lock washer from this gear. Lift off the gear and the belt. Next, we'll remove the tape arm. To remove the tape arm, grasp the leaf spring from the rear with a tweezer and pull forward. This frees the tape arm so that it can be lifted off as well. reassembly procedure is basically the reverse of disassembly. However, during reassembly, the mechanical timing between components, the proper fit of the parts, and the order of parts installation are critical to ensure proper mechanism operation. During the reassembly procedure, you will operate various sections of the mechanism in order to confirm that the reassembly up to that point has been done properly. To avoid losing parts, do not turn the mechanism over unless instructed to do so. The first step in reassembly is to assemble the main chassis. Install the tape arm, and install the leaf spring. If the leaf spring does not fit snugly, bend it slightly outward at its U-shaped area. To install the belt and gear, place the belt on the chassis. Install the translucent gear on its shaft. Then place the white belt gear on the chassis. Its small radius faces up. Loop the belt around the groove of this gear and install on the shaft. Now rotate the gear to ensure proper fit. Finally, place a lock washer over the translucent gear. Install the pinch press arm and secure it with a lock washer. Install the plastic cam gear onto its shaft. Install the fast-forward arm. Make sure that its pin fits into the groove of the cam gear. Rotate the plastic cam gear to make sure that the fast-forward arm moves freely. Install the GL arm and position it on the shaft. Finally, install the metal cam gear. The metal cam gear's timing triangle should line up with the triangle on the plastic cam gear. The metal cam gear's timing hole should line up with the mark on the mode switch gear. And the pin on the GL arm should fit into the cam gear. Before installing the eject lever, make sure that the sleeve is positioned in the lever. Install the spring and the lever. Make sure that the plastic tail spring is positioned properly. To install the slider, the timing marks on the gears should be lined up as mentioned earlier. Then place the slider on the chassis. Ensure that the following items are positioned correctly starting on the left side of the slider. The pin underneath this point must fit into the groove of the metal cam. This shaft must fit through the channel in the slider and be secured with a lock washer. Moving to the right side of the slider, the pin protruding from the pinch press arm must fit into this square hole. This shaft must fit through this channel in the slider and be secured with a lock washer. Finally, the eject lever must fit into the cutout of the slider. Install the gear retainer bracket and secure it with 2 brass screws. To verify that the components were installed properly, rotate the gears and make sure that the mechanism operates smoothly, that timing is correct, that the GL arm moves freely, and that the fast-forward arm moves freely as well. Continue with reassembly by installing the A gear. To reinstall the loading motor, first rotate the A gear fully counterclockwise. This prevents the metal tab from interfering with the loading motor. Now install the loading motor and secure it with 2 brass screws. With these steps completed, the mechanism can be turned over without losing any parts. Before proceeding further, check out the mechanism for proper operation. Connect the mode box to the loading motor and cycle it back and forth a number of times. Make sure that all gears operate smoothly and that the mechanism is not jamming. This completes the main chassis assembly. The first step in reassembling the LS chassis is to install the pinch roller and its washer. Install the supply reel. Notice that it rests on the leaf brake. Move the leaf brake in this direction and push down on the reel table. Now hook the tension wire back into the mechanism. Loop it around the reel table. Once the wire is correctly positioned in the groove, place the wire base in its correct position. Secure it with a black screw in this location. With the mechanism turned over, install the loading arms. The arm with the rounded end is the supply arm and goes on the left. The arm with the pointed end is the take-up arm and goes on the right. Secure the loading arms with lock washers. These washers are slightly larger than the others used in the mechanism. The tape guide with the wide angle goes on the take-up arm. The tape guide with the narrow angle goes on the supply arm. Now, before installing these tape guides, extend the arms and position the cam slider on the chassis. Move it up slowly so that it meshes with the loading arms and starts to move them. Install the take-up guide in the take-up arm on the chassis and lock it in place. Install the supply guide in the supply arm and lock it in place. Then maneuver the tape guides into their channels. Place the main chassis in front of you. With the mode box, move the metal cam gear so that it is fully clockwise. Now move it back about 10 degrees. The metal cam should remain in this position so that you can later combine the two chassis. Place the beveled sleeve into the metal cam gear, beveled side up. Install the LS arm, making sure that its protruding pin fits into the sleeve. The LS chassis must be prepared before it is installed onto the main chassis. To prepare the LS chassis, move the slider cam all the way out. Move the plastic lever to the side, which forces its pin to move up. When combining the LS chassis and the main chassis, the following must fit. The pin from the LS arm on the main chassis must fit into the cutout on the LS chassis. The pin from the GL arm on the main chassis must fit into the hole on the slider cam of the LS chassis. Finally, the plastic pin from the LS chassis must fit into the groove of the tape arm. After combining the two chassis, be sure to install the 4 black screws. With the mode box, cycle the mechanism back and forth a number of times, making sure that it operates smoothly and does not jam. Now install the capstan motor. use the mode box to move the pinch roller away from the capstan area. Then turn the mechanism over and insert the capstan assembly. Put on the capstan cover and secure it with 2 screws. From the top of the mechanism, install the black capstan hold-down screw by moving the ribbon cable aside. Install the ribbon wire retainer over the ribbon cable. Secure it with a brass screw. Install the pendulum gear and fasten it with a lock washer. The curved edge goes on the right. Install the soft arm. Install the soft gear so that its tab fits into the hole. Then install the take-up reel and the metal plate. First fit it into the tabs on the mechanism and then secure it with a brass screw. Install the drum assembly. While holding the drum on top with your finger, turn the mechanism over. Install the ribbon cable and the 3 drum hold-down screws. Install the head protector and secure it with 2 brass screws. To install the cassette holder, first place the mechanism in the eject position. Next, hold the cassette holder at a 45-degree angle and fit it into the left side of the mechanism. Before fitting it in on the right side, make sure that the wire spring is in this location. Fit the right side in place. Slowly press down on the cassette holder. At the same time, guide the arm lock into the plastic groove. Continue pressing down on the cassette holder until you hear a click. At this point, the cassette holder is locked in place. Fit the front section of the cassette holder onto the mechanism. Then secure it with 2 brass screws. With the mode box, cycle the mechanism back and forth a number of times. Make sure that it goes to all of its positions and also ejects properly. This concludes the reassembly procedure. We will now demonstrate how to align the mechanism after you've replaced parts and reassembled the transport. In this first part of the section, we will show you how to adjust the number 1 tape guide position with the wire brake. Insert a 60 or 90-minute cassette and put the unit in the play mode. In the upper left corner, compare the position of the number 1 tape guide to the number 2 tape guide. They should line up as shown in the diagram. That is, the right edge of the number 1 guide is offset a 1/4 millimeter from the center of the number 2 guide. If the tape guide position is not correct, eject the tape. Then place the mechanism in the threaded position. After slightly loosening this black screw, use the star alignment tool to adjust the tape guide position. To move the number 1 guide to the left, move the gear teeth down. Move the teeth up to move the guide to the right. Tighten the screw once the tape guide is positioned properly. Then insert the tape and put the unit in play mode. Recheck the number 1 guide position and repeat the procedure until alignment is correct. To adjust back tension, play back a Sony torque cassette in the camcorder. Check that the supply reel torque is between 8.5 and 11.5 grams per centimeter. If it is not within this range, adjust it. Adjust the tape guide arm tension by moving the plastic gear up to increase torque and down to decrease torque. The torque will change in increments, and a click will be heard at each increment. To determine if the tape path is aligned properly, insert a Sony WR5 1N alignment tape and place the camcorder or VTR in the track shift mode. The service manual of the unit being serviced explains how to do this. Connect one oscilloscope probe to the RF envelope test point and the other oscilloscope probe to the 30 Hz switch pulse test point, which is used to trigger the scope. The service manual for the unit indicates the locations of these test points. Now place the unit in play mode. Observe the RF envelope. It should be flat on top and bottom. If the right side is low, as in this case, adjust the number 3 tape guide. To adjust the number 3 guide, slightly loosen the guide set screw and make sure that the tape is positioned properly at the left shoulder of the drum. It should not curl, ride over the shoulder, or float high above the shoulder. If it does, adjust the guide so that the tape rides in the proper position as shown. Adjust the number 3 tape guide using the adjustment tool. Fine adjust it so that the right part of the envelope is flat. Then tighten the set screw. If the left side of the envelope is low, adjust the number 6 tape guide. Slightly loosen the guide set screw and make sure that the tape is positioned properly at the right shoulder of the drum. Again, it should not curl, ride over the shoulder, or float high above the shoulder. If it does, adjust the guide so that the tape rides in this position. Adjust the number 6 tape guide using the adjustment tool. Fine adjust the number 6 guide so that the left part of the envelope is flat. Then tighten the set screw. Now we will show you how to determine if the number 2 tape guide is properly adjusted. With the camcorder or VTR in the track shift mode, insert a 120-minute pre-recorded tape and put the unit in play mode. The bottom edge of the tape should just touch the lower tape guide flange and produce a curl not to exceed 1/3 of a millimeter. Use a mirror to examine the tape guide. If it is off, use the adjustment tool to adjust it. Play the tape in the reverse mode, then put it directly into normal play mode. The RF envelope should flatten out within 2 seconds. If it does not, fine adjust the number 2 guide a quarter turn at a time until it does. To adjust the number 7 guide, you must use the number 7 height adjusting screw. The tape should be centered in the guide without any curl or riding of the flanges. If it is off, adjust the guide. From the play mode, place it in the reverse play mode. The RF envelope waveforms should remain evenly spaced for a minimum of 5 seconds. If they do not, fine adjust the number 7 height adjustment screw a quarter turn at a time until they do. In the event one end of the pinch roller spring comes off, the mechanism may jam either during loading and threading, or it may jam during unthreading or unloading. If it does load and thread, a playback picture will exhibit symptoms similar to a loss of capstan phase lock. Mechanism jamming during unthreading may be caused by a bent pendulum gear or a bent gooseneck plate. If a mechanism with excessive rewind noise is encountered and the noise is objectionable, then the pendulum gear should be replaced with a new gear. This training tape has explored Sony's A mechanism. We showed you how to mechanically check the mechanism, disassemble and reassemble it, alignment procedures, and a few closing hints to help you service a product with this mechanism. Now you have a full understanding of the A mechanism and how to effectively service this transport.